I think you have to think long-term relationships. And, at the beginning, we did attend so many. And I think you have to get out there and you have to let people know what you're doing.
Tim is one of the most authentic and genuine people I've ever met.
Sincerely believe he's coming from a position of giving, and that means a lot.
You're going to make huge progress.
Welcome everybody to today's Capital Raising Show. I'm your host, Tim Mai, and today I have a very special guest speaker on. I'm so super excited to interview her today because, number one, she's the first woman that I'm interviewing out of all of these guys I've been interviewing, and number two, she's Vietnamese, and I'm also Vietnamese, so I'm super excited about that. Dr. Nguyen is an entrepreneur, author, co-host of the Financial Freedom Show. She's an eye doctor and also a real estate investor and syndicator. She is the CEO and co-founder of Black Steel Investment Group. She has over $460 million asset under management in real estate and has invested over 6,500 units, both as general partners as well as limited partners across 23 apartment communities. She owns two successful eye practices in the DFW area named Eyepieces for over 10 years and co-founded Black Steel Investment Group to help families and busy professionals invest passively in apartment communities. She's a mother of an 8-year-old daughter, Athena, and her husband, also a business partner, Dr. Jaime Gonzalez. And her passion is to travel the world and to immerse herself into different cultures, empower youth, empower women, and contribute back to the community and many nonprofit organizations. So with that, let's give Dr. Nguyen a big, big welcome, y'all. Woo-hoo!
Thank you so much, Tim. Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet everyone.
Yes. All right. I am super excited for this. Just quickly, thank you so much for doing this interview with me today. It's an honor to get to meet you and now getting to interview you.
Well, it's an honor to be the first woman on here.
Yes, we do need more women on the show, though, for sure. But it just so happens that this week and then next week we have another woman on. So
all right,
it's perfect. So, Dr. Nguyen, if we can start out, you can share with everybody, how did you went about getting into the real estate investing space, especially the multifamily space?
So real estate investing, we're eye doctors for 16 years. But when my daughter was born 8 years ago, we wanted to figure out a way to have more time freedom because our practices, I was working about 70, 80 hours a week hustling. And so, we knew real estate was the vehicle, but we didn't know exactly how to get in our foot in the door. And so we listened to a lot of podcasts, read a bunch of books and bunch of boot camps, and anybody who was hosting an event for real estate, we would go. And so we learned different avenues of real estate. And so the first couple of years, we were doing some single family, buying land and doing those different avenues of real estate, learning and then just investing. And then we actually had a patient who was telling us about multifamily and talking about syndication. And so that's when we started going into those type of conferences and meetups, and then joined groups and learned about that avenue. And that was close to about 5 years ago. And that's when we started our multifamily journey.
That's awesome. And so did you start out as a passive investor first?
I did. We started off as passive investors in 8 different deals in different markets with different sponsorship teams. And so we knew that the end goal was to go active. So we were extremely passive actives. But we wanted to really look at the financials, ask questions, go visit the property. And so we were doing all of that, but we wanted to make sure that we felt comfortable with that before we actually started syndicating ourselves.
That's awesome. And so when you started to syndicate yourself and went on, I guess in your journey, did you join any coaching group or did you just all learn from the deals?
No, we joined a mentorship program. We visited like 3 or 4 different ones where we did separate boot camps, but then we actually signed up with a mentorship program through Brad Sumrock.
Okay.
And that's where we joined. And then we built an ecosystem. So we invested and made partnerships in that group. But then we also did outside of the group because we wanted to learn how other people were doing it outside of the group as well.
Right. Okay. And how much would you say both your team collectively and you personally have raised since you started in this business?
Yeah, so our team collectively has raised 138 million. And out of that 138 million, my husband and I personally raised about 33 million of that.
Wow, very impressive. At like 30, even 33 million is a lot of money to raise. At one point, did you ever had the thought of like, hey, this is a lot of money? Or did you come in because your background, being a doctor, did you have that confidence like, oh, I'll be able to raise money, no big deal?
No. You know what? Doctors are the harder investors. You would
really?
think doctors, yeah, although they're high income earners, they're very skeptical. And I speak from my own experience because that was my mindset coming in when I was learning about this avenue of real estate. And so even though there's money, you would think that that would be an easy pitch per se, or no, it's actually harder getting investors from doctors, although the bulk of mine have been doctors, but it took really time in building and educating. And it was a huge core. And then they watched my journey before they jumped in.
I see.
Yeah, so doctors are not that easy as you would think. But, I was nervous at the beginning, obviously. We were very active in building our database, even as passives. We were educating, learning, talking to people about what we were doing, so that when we did get our first opportunity, we would feel comfortable saying, hey, I think I can raise about X, Y, and Z. But you never know when it's your first deal and someone asks you, what do you think you can raise? I mean, honestly, you don't really know how many of those people who you talk to will convert to actual investors, but you just keep talking and building that relationship and say, hey, if I have a deal, would you be ready? And about how much would you invest? And so I would always kind of keep that in the back of my mind. And then so when I did have that first opportunity, I felt, pretty okay saying, I think I can bring in that much. And we did.
Gotcha. Okay. So how much did you raise on your first deal?
So my very first deal, I raised 2.5 million.
Wow, that's impressive for first deal. Because I hear stories about people barely raising $200,000 for their first deal. So that's super impressive. You must have done a really good job preparing all of your contacts up for that.
I did. I was so diligent about like, hey, if I have a deal, like, are you ready? And X, Y, and Z, this is our criteria. This is what we're looking for. So I'd educate them and plant the seed and be like, hey, when it comes, are you in?
That's awesome. And what would you say is the percentage of your, and not just your first deal, but overall percentage of your passive investors that are doctors versus non-doctors?
I would say maybe 40%.
Oh, okay. I was expecting much bigger, but okay. And what's the profile for the others?
All walks of life. I have business owners who own hair salons. I have people who own restaurants. I have CEOs of like big companies. I have designers who are like watch designers and like those type of things. So more in the business world kind of people, athletes. And then the rest of it are mixed kind of doctors.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, yeah, if you can share with everybody.
Engineers. I have a lot of engineers.
Okay.
IT space. I have a lot in the IT space.
Okay, gotcha. If you have to give it a percentage, what would you say? 20, 30?
In the tech space, probably about 25%. I have a good amount in the tech space.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know that. But you know what? Why don't you do this? Share with everybody what would be your top 3 tips when it comes to raising capital?
Top 3 tips I would say is, because we attend a lot of meetups and conferences. So what we always do is we intentionally select 5 to maybe max 10 people that we want to make a deeper connection to. And then at that point, we make sure that we talk to them there, we follow up and follow through and continue those. And so because it can get overwhelming sometimes if you're just passing out business cards. And so that's really not our strategy. We don't try to hit as many people and talk to as many people. We really just kind of small, but 5 to 10 intentionally. If we know some of them are going to be in advance, we know them online, but we know they're going to be in an event. And those are the people we want to try to connect to in person. And if they're new people, that's okay too. But we try to focus on quality over quantity. So that's tip number 1. And that's worked out really well for us because of the conversion rate that we've been able to get with that. Number 2, what's really been beneficial for capital raising on a larger scale is being able to have a platform to speak, whether it's on a live stage, whether it's a virtual stage like this or whatnot, and just create value. So nothing is sold, nothing is pitched at that point, but it's educating, and then you give people a mobile code, and so that way they can connect with you, and it's one to many. And so you're able to really connect with a lot more people, and you'll do the one-to-one after you get the one-to-many, because if you can speak on stage, even if it's 15, 20 minutes, give a code, a mobile code out, and you can collect about 80 to 100 people's data and then go back, and then it's streamlined, it's automated mobile processes where then they get then they get their website or your introduction, get to know who you are before you actually set up that one-on-one call with them. And so sometimes I'll take that one-on-one call personally, or sometimes I'll have my investor director take up that call. The third tip I would say is a compilation book for credibility. And so if you have a book, if you have your name on a book and you get to know people, not only do they get to know that you're part of a book, a compilation book, you want to be in a book where there's a lot of people who are well known. And so when they're reading those people's chapter, they're also reading your chapter, and you have your information, and people get to know your story. And I think that gives, there's a personal side to that. And so people invest with people who they know, like, and trust, right? And so having that is kind of like I say, a book is today's business card, because once somebody gets, even if it's a short chapter, that has helped me tremendously. I give them away as marketing. And so if I speak in an event or if I go somewhere, I can sign it, give it to as a gift. And that has really been really powerful as far as helping us raise capital.
That's awesome. So I'm going to ask you some questions around these 3 tips, but the one regarding the compilation book, are there a lot of groups out there that kind of lead the compilation books?
Yeah, there are. I mean, I've done 4 compilation books now. And so they're different. It depends on what kind of book and what kind of story resonates with you, right? Okay. And so there are different groups. I've done one with Kyle Wilson. He was Jim Brown's business partner for 18 years.
Yeah. Okay.
So he does a lot of compilation books. Every few months he does one. And
gotcha.
And he has a lot of well-known people in there. His is a little bit pricier to do a chapter. So it can range from doing a compilation book where it's free to all the way up to like $3,500. The average being maybe about within the $500 to $800 range. So the more well-known people, if there's celebrities in the book and things like that, you're going to pay higher for that compilation book. If it's not going to be quite as well-known, but it's still good content and things like that, and it's still a book, that's going to be published and it's on Amazon, and all of them are going to be under the #1 Amazon bestseller type thing. But you don't have to spend a whole lot just to at least get your story and get your content out there, and people can connect. I mean, I had people connect from overseas, and I was like, how'd you get my contact information? They're like, from your book. I'm like, which book? These books, they have a wide reach that I didn't expect them to get.
That is awesome. I like that. Okay. And then on your meetup idea, do you mostly attend real estate type meetups, or also what are the other type of meetups?
I'm glad you brought that up, Tim, because I'm in a lot of other circles outside of real estate. Although I attend a tremendous amount of real estate conferences, There's a lot of like doctor conferences and business entrepreneurial conferences that I go to. And that is a huge, because they don't know about the real estate syndication space. And so that's a whole nother avenue and type of investor to be able to convert and educate. And so I find that a lot of my investors also come from these outside masterminds or outside conferences that I attend. And then once somebody, especially if you have an opportunity to be interviewed or speak, then it'll open more doors to other professional groups where they're like, hey, can you come speak to my group? Because I would love to learn more about real estate syndications because we don't know what that entails.
Okay. What is your process or funnel looks like for someone, especially who's not in the real estate space? So how do you begin that education process from someone, they're let's say they're just a business owner, it's a business owner group that you went to. How do you take that person? What's your process to where they, send you the wire?
So the process, if it's a cold lead, and they just kind of text it in, then my investor director, she goes through that process, sends them an introductory email. And that introductory email will have our frequently asked questions, introduce who we are, our website, she'll introduce who she is, and then she has a Calendly link for them to schedule a call with her. Now, if they specifically want to speak to one of us because they personally met us at the event, or by request, they would prefer to speak to us instead of her, then she will coordinate that so that we make sure that we get the personal call. Otherwise, it gets too many calls and we're not going to be able to take all the calls. And so she helps us kind of filter through that process. There's a questionnaire, and then she sets up the call. And then at that point, we set up a 30-minute Zoom call. Sometimes she does the Zoom call. If they request us, we'll do a 30-minute Zoom call, but that's only touch point one. And so we like to do multiple touch points. So it's not like, okay, we made the one call, we're good. So they get put into our database after we make our call. But so we use MailChimp. And so once Maria or I or Jaime has made the call with an investor, because most of ours are 506B, and then we put them into MailChimp. And then from there, we have touch points via text message instead of an email. We usually like to text message. If we're friends on Facebook, then I'll do a Facebook message just to connect and see, and then let them know like, hey, our next webinar, we're going to be talking about X, Y, and Z. And so they're education content that we'll do private webinars for people that we know want to learn more. And then we'll let them know kind of the process. And then, hey, if the next investment opportunity comes, if you're a first-time investor and I know you're new and I know you're ready to go, I'll put you on a VIP email list, which means that I'll give you first dibs, usually a day before I send it out to the rest of my list.
Gotcha. Okay. And then do you have like a weekly or monthly newsletter type thing that you send to them?
We do quarterly newsletters.
Quarterly. Okay.
We do quarterly newsletters and monthly kind of education content live Zoom.
Gotcha. Okay. And then regarding speaking on stages, your tip number 2 there. Now you have your own financial freedom show. Do you get more investors from your own show or from you being a guest on someone else's?
Guest on someone else's stage. Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially because, I started off about 1.5 years ago was the first time I started speaking on stages. I mean, I have the hugest fear of public speaking, terrified. But I think that was the biggest growth for us. It was the biggest challenge to overcome and push comfort zones. But speaking on stages, there is a level of association with the other speakers, and automatically people will come up to you after you finish getting off that stage. And most of the times, if I'm on there, I may not even give my information. Automatically, there'll be a line of people who are want to get to know you more. So it's kind of like the mystery of wait, you just told me a little bit, but how do I know more? How do I connect? And so the conversion of live speaking events is so much better.
Okay, good, very good to know. All right, and in terms, I know you position yourself a lot around speaking, around books. Any other ways that you position yourself such that it help gain their trust and that rapport process faster?
Yeah, in the beginning of my journey, honestly, Tim, when I was solo, like I didn't have an investor director and all this, we were doing this solo. We would meet people in person. Like it wasn't a Zoom unless they weren't local. If they were local, then we would, invite them out for lunch or dinner. And if they were out of town, they were coming in for a conference, then we would be intentional about setting up where we can have a coffee together. But that one-on-one time, I think is super important to be in person. That is the best way to kind of earn trust over time. Now for us, the other multiplier that I would say is our existing, we call them raving fans or raving investors, right? And so your investors who are already investing with you, and especially if they're repeat investors, are the best people to refer. And the referral, it's like they already trust them. And so we have built a lot of people really by referral as well, that from our existing base, because they've already invested in multiple deals with us. We already have a good rapport and trust with them. And so they're now sending us their friends and family for us to educate and then have the investment opportunities. And I think that's something that we want to make sure we don't forget is the low-lying fruit. Like, don't forget those who are already there instead of just creating new ones. Focus on the existing ones too.
Right. Do you have a process in place that asks for that referral?
I don't actually ask out loud for their referral. We do have an email that we sent out one email before that has like, if you have any family or friends to refer or whatnot. But I think I'll just casually kind of mention it if I'm meeting someone in person, or if I know someone who's like been investing with us. I think they naturally just like, hey, my mom wants to invest or my brother wants to invest. Will you talk to them? And so what we do a lot is group Zoom. And so we'll have the existing, the ones that we already have as investors, and the people that they're introducing in, we'll do a small group Zoom of maybe 5 or 6 people where we want them to be on with the new people with us.
Yeah.
And so that's been extremely effective.
Gotcha. Very good. Very good to know. So I know your deals, or actually share with everyone, what type of deals do you go after? Do you do, like what class they are?
So we predominantly do A and B class, 150 units to about 360 units. So Texas, we're heavy. We live in Dallas here, so DFW and Houston are our main markets that we look for. But we are also in San Antonio and the Carolinas and Phoenix, and we'd like to get into the Florida market this year as well.
I see. Okay. Now those deals, I mean, what would you say is the average purchase price on these deals?
So they range from 26 to 71 million.
Wow.
So I would
Okay.
say the bulk of our average is going to be usually within more of the 40 to 50 million range.
Right. Okay. So yeah, so pretty sizable deals. So each deal you're raising a lot of money. I'm curious as to your take on why you choose to use 506B only and not 506C.
Most of our teams have always just, personally, I like knowing who my investors are and then giving some the opportunity who are not accredited to be able to invest. I like that. And I like pre-existing where I know them already and someone's referred, or, most of my partners too prefer doing a 506B. I'm honestly not opposed to a 506C. I've only done one 506C in the past. And, I think some investors don't like the accreditation process where they have to prove all the, and, that is just one extra step. Even though you have a third party company doing that process, sometimes investors may not like it as much. But honestly, I'd be open to either one. It's not like I'm, I was thinking in the future of doing a fund of funds. I've never done a fund of funds. And so maybe opening a 506c to do something like that, because sometimes we go and we have a lot of meetings and we go to events and people have money and they're ready. They're like, here's my money. And I'm like, I don't have a deal yet, right? And so you just got to wait. And so I think having something where maybe having a 506c platform and creating a fund, so that in the window of what we're looking, that might be an option for us. So.
I see.
Hey, Tim, if I may add a quick comment on that, I think one of the big advantages of creating a 506B fund is once you hit $5 million, you can give 506C deals to 506B investors. That's a huge plus.
Wait, say that again?
If you do a 506B fund and the fund hits $5 million in assets, fund of funds,
Right.
once it hits $5 million in assets, you can even do 506C deals.
You can.
Yeah, and expose them to 506B investors. So we
didn't
can
know
talk
that.
offline. I don't want to break in.
Yeah.
Tim will kick me out of the room otherwise. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks,
Well,
Badri.
thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for that. So have you had a deal that gone south, that gone bad? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Share with us. So share with us, what went wrong and how did you navigate through that?
Well, this was not, it didn't go across the finish line. This was kind of in my earlier stages. We were looking at a 24 unit deal here in Grand Prairie. And I had a few of my partners go in. We were planning to do a JV on it. We weren't going to syndicate the deal. And so I had 3 other people. And, we had all the terms, like we had the broker, it was 24 units. We put hard money into the deal. And we had lenders give us terms and everything for the property. And then we did our due diligence and everything was looking like, okay, this is going to be fine. And this was before I was like, okay, maybe we could just get our feet wet. The 0 to 1 is hard. And so after a while, I was like, man, I just want to maybe just get my hands and just get in there to get my first deal. And I think a JV, a small deal, would be a great way to break the barrier because it was so hard for us to be on the co-GP. And so when we did that deal, what wound up happening was none of the lenders would lend on it because they said that for agent, it had to be a bank loan because none of the non-recourse loans, because they were on 3 different parcels. So it was a really weird thing of how the buildings were set on different parcels. And so they said they wouldn't lend on it. And so we didn't want to do a bank recourse loan at that time. And so we wound up just, my partners, 2 of my partners didn't want to go through with it. And so we decided, you know what, let's just go back and focusing on doing bigger deals and doing a syndication. So that was one that we just, we lost, they gave us half of it back. So we lost a small amount of earnest money on that. But that was at the beginning of our journey, trying to break and getting our first deal.
Gotcha. That's good. So other than that deal, like you have been able to successfully raise and funded all of the other deals?
Yeah, all our other syndication deals, those have been fine. Those have gone smoothly. The only thing that I would say is not smooth, but it still ended up fine. We just had to do an extension. It's just more our last couple of deals because of the lenders retrading last minute. So it was a bad thing, but a good thing, because we then had to go back to the seller to renegotiate the purchase price. And so both of our last deals, we were able to get a $3 million discount from the seller because of the lender retrading last minute on us. But it closed down, everything went smoothly. So it's great, it appraised higher. So all of it was fine, but it was stressful in the time when all of this was happening with the lending situation.
Right, that's awesome. What are some of your favorite tools that you use in your business?
Favorite tools in what sense?
Well, it could be software tools. It could be any kind of resources that you use in your business that you like.
I think MailChimp has been easy. I know a lot of people use ActiveCampaign. I'm not well versed in that. I think MailChimp is very user friendly for us, and we've been able to do all our campaigns and newsletters and everything through that. So we like that. Cash flow portal, we really like that. We have all of the other ones too, Syndication Pro, Juniper Square. But I think from both the GP and LP side, I find that the cash flow portal is not only less expensive, but they're more user friendly. And we know the founder, Perry Zhang. And so whenever we have any issues, and because he has that IT background, so if there's something that I find that's like, hey, we don't want our investors to have to start all over when there's something wrong with the document. Can't we just make an addendum and have an initial it? And so they did that within a 24-hour period, because I'm like, yeah, I'm making my investors keep starting over, because I get frustrated when I have to keep doing that. And so little things like that, that's been a very good resource for us. And they also put it out in the marketplace so people can reach us. The third thing is, I think my biggest resource that I can't share with anyone is like our investor director, like Maria, adding someone to our team and taking off so much off of our plate. She coordinates everything for like investor appreciation gifts right after, so after every deal, she sends out gifts to all our investors. She hosts dinners for our investors to do appreciation dinners. Then it gets people in and then helps us bring other people in. And so having one other person who's really strong on your team, that's been a big builder for us and huge resource. I think the best resource for us so far.
That's awesome. So for those of us that want to hire someone like Maria, what is her profile? Is she a more outgoing social butterfly type person, or share with us some of her personality traits that have her be so good at what she does?
Personality trait, like we've known her for over 25 years. She went to school with Jaime in college, but very outgoing. Like she's probably 10 times me in the outgoing space. She's very articulate. She's very good on camera and speaking. She's very personal, very caring. And so she's very organized, very detail oriented and tech savvy. But the two things, the best is just she connects well with people and her communication skills are excellent.
I see.
And so everything else we could teach her. She didn't know anything about real estate. We didn't care. I was like, we can train that. Everything else, like personality and just her level of care and follow up and follow through, and the detail orientation of what she does, that is what really has helped us a lot. And streamlining awesome. Processes, that's not my forte. I'm not tech savvy. I hired everything that I didn't want to do and I'm not as good as she's good at.
That's good. Good to know. So where do you see the market going, especially for Class A and B coming up, with all this craziness with the interest rate hikes and all of that?
Yeah, I think the debt structure and the underwriting key right now, making sure that that is buffered in for lending in the environment of what's going on. We stay in prime markets just because that's what's worked really well for us in the A and B space. And then I think the biggest thing is the underwriting and to be as conservative as you can with that, and having extra cash reserve on hand and making sure that you have enough cash flow given whatever circumstances and whatever market we're in, right? And so the debt structure normally, even if we get approved for 75% now, we're taking about 60 to 62%. So we really, and if it underwrites and it pencils out, and especially if we get a deal that the broker's bringing to us and they really want our team to be able to close that deal, and if the numbers work and we can get a debt coverage that's low, that kind of protects us a bit for any type of future market situations, then that's a green light for us. And so we lose out a lot of deals because we don't quite, we can't bring the price to what things are, but we're okay. We're patient and we'll go through the process until the right.
Okay. And are you doing any new development at all?
I haven't actually gone into the new development space, Tim, but that's our next chapter of what we would like to get into.
Okay, very good one. So what would you what would you share with the people listening that they're starting out new and they're not confident in their ability to raise a significant, let's say even $1 million for their first deal? What would you advise them or share with them?
I think you have to think long-term relationships. And, at the beginning, we did attend so many. And I think you have to you have to get out there and you have to let people know what you're doing in your immediate circle. And when you're going out to networking events, that first few minutes in engagement of when you talk to someone, you have to make it really clear whether you want, if your intention of talking to that person is to have a strategic partnership opportunity, then make that well known in what you bring to the table. If you're looking for passive investors and investors are in the room, then that's a conversation. And even if you've never raised and the biggest fear most people have is, well, I've never raised money and I don't have experience yet, right? How do I raise capital? And so I always say you are going to leverage the experience of someone else. And so when I passively invested, I had intentions to strategically partner with them as a co-GP one day. And everyone that I have invested passively, at some point in my journey, I have co-GP'd with them because I intentionally made it so. And so I think you leverage them. And when you educate an investor who's interested, you're going to say, it's not just me, it's my team. And then you leverage the experienced co-GP's resume and their level of expertise and their track record and what potential past history returns might have been. Of course, it may not be, but those are things you want to kind of educate people on what's possible in that space. In the returns, because most people have no idea, right? And so Don't be afraid of and most people, when people tell me, no, I'm not really interested right now, I don't consider that okay, I'm not going to talk to that person anymore. I still keep going back to people and keep making that connection and relationship, because eventually a lot of those people might have waited a year or two on the sidelines, and then they finally came in and now they're my investors. But it took time for them to feel comfortable enough to trust me, to know that, hey, she's been now on the journey. But I make it very well known everywhere I go what I do. And so you have to let people know what you're doing.
That's awesome. I like that. I like the thinking long term, right? So it could be a few years. So yes,
that's okay.
I love that.
That's okay.
Yeah. So what's your big goal?
My big goal, it's funny because I never thought that speaking would be one of the things that I would even enjoy doing. And now it's a thing I actually love to do. And so, I want to just create more international platforms. And, I did my first trip to Vietnam and did a 2-week mastermind around multifamily.
Oh, wow.
And so there's a huge interest of international investors. And now I've got the attorneys over there. I've got some big groups coming to Dallas to visit us. And so, I love traveling. And so it's I always said, well, how do I incorporate my love of travels in different countries and then the real estate space? How do I do that, right? And so now that's my future big plan, is to be able to travel to different countries and speak on, it doesn't have to just be real estate. It's just living life on your own terms, because real estate is a vehicle, I say, is to your freedom and impact. And so we do a lot of mission work too. And so that's all in our wheelhouse now that we have more financial resources and time to do that. We can actually personally go and do those type of trips.
Love it. And what are you teaching your daughter that perhaps not many parents out there teaching their kids?
My daughter, her nickname is Ninja. And so, she's bigger than life. And because we take her and, we teach her about just getting out there and not being fearful. And she's actually the one who taught me to not be so fearful because I'm always scared of everything. And so she was the one actually encouraging me more, but she sees us. She tours, like she's been to apartment, like she's been on a lot of our apartment projects. She goes to our practices. I mean, she knows the entrepreneurial mindset. She's invested early on at a young age, her own money. And so she understands the concept of investing. She understands the concept of donations and volunteering and things like that and giving. And so for me, I just want her to build confidence and getting out there. And so she's a little, she'll get out there and she could probably pitch you. She could probably pitch you a deal, Tim.
We should do that. Have her come on here and pitch a deal to all of us here. That's awesome.
I'm kidding.
I love that. I love that. So Dr. Nguyen, if the listeners wants to reach out to you, connect with you, invest with you, do deals with you, where would you like to send them?
So they can go on our website. It's passivewealth23.com, or they can text the word passive to the number 26786.
Awesome.
So what typically happens with that, when I do that text message I was telling you about, Tim, so you can create like whatever you want to follow that. And so we created a due diligence checklist. So for investors who want to passively invest, it'll have a 50-point due diligence checklist on there. And then also it'll give us the website and things like that. And then in the future, when we do host webinars and things like that, it'll be streamlined where you get a link once you get to that. Once you text that, then you're in the system.
Gotcha. So your short code is 2678?
26786.
26786. So there's 5 digits, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was like 4 digits short code. That's super short.
Just text the word passive to that 5 number 26786.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, Dr. Nguyen, thank you so much for doing this interview with me today. Yeah, I really appreciate you. I enjoyed this interview a lot. So you've shared a ton of information. So thank you so much.
Thank you and appreciate everyone.
Awesome.